I'm Chris Williams from Cyclone Fanatic and a proud Iowa State graduate from the class of 2007. No one shows up like Iowa State fans. And Cyclones support Cyclones on and off the field. Your gift can provide scholarships to students, fund groundbreaking research. We could even drum up opportunities for the marching band. Visit MoveWhatMatters.com to learn how you can make an impact today.
Deep breath, everybody. It's the Beat Reporters. Here on a Friday, we haven't talked in a long time. Literally everything has changed since the last time we talked in the Northwest Bank Studios, and I am so excited to break it all down. Cyhawk Hoops, the Jimmy effin' Rogers era is underway. The Matt Campbell era is over. And we're going to try and break all of it down in an hour. I'm Jake Brend, here with Cyclone Fanatic and Iowa Everywhere, joined in the middle by Ben Hutchens of the Quad City Times and Rob Gray on the right from the Cedar Rapids Gazette and Cyclone Fanatic. What a week, gentlemen. What a week.
Is this the craziest week? I was trying to contextualize the Matt Campbell leaving story. Is that the biggest story to happen to Iowa State athletics ever?
No.
Probably
I was here for Eustacia.
Yeah, 2000 Auburn Hills.
And I was here for the Eustacia deal, where random dude called up the Des Moines Register and said, I have photos. How much will you pay me? And the sports editor at the time, my friend and the great late Bryce Miller, said, we don't pay for photos. And goes down the chain, Bulldog investigative reporter in sports, and now I think he's kind of an academic and book writer, Tom Witowski, clamps onto it and digs into it, and yes, in fact, it leads to the demise of Larry Eustacia at Iowa State. Now, the teams had already gone south a little bit, but that was a different feeling. Being in it, it felt just as crazy, but there's no social media, right? So from the broader perspective, it's not crazier. You know what I mean? So that's the only thing I could comp it to. But in terms of my career and given how much things have changed, because if this coaching thing happens in the era where Eustacia had, I guess the controversy, the quote-unquote scandal, whatever you want to call it at the time, happens, we're working differently. I know, Ben, you were hanging out, ended up talking to Rocco back to where the Players Park. Jake and I were hanging out in front of the Stark Performance Center for a while. You saw us. We tried to see you. So there was a little bit of that stuff, trying to scoop this and scoop that. But again, the scoops come from the football scoops of the world. The scoops come from sometimes the burners of the world.
Pete Thamel.
And then of course the designated scoopies in the national media. So, or as I call them, plug-ins. So a different era, but yes, crazy. Right up there in terms of as crazy as you could want, I guess.
I think as far as unprecedented goes, these last 2 weeks, starting, I would say, with probably just the Oklahoma State football game, closing the regular season, from there to where we sit today, you throw in Iowa State beating Iowa in wrestling for the first time in 21 years. That feels like an eternity ago.
Yeah.
That was not even 2 weeks ago. The entire Matt Campbell saga, we talked to him on signing day. He feels so normal. I truly don't think at that time he had been contacted or knew he was leaving. I think it probably came after that, judging off of what we know. Everything that went down Friday, hanging out in the Jacobson building for 24 hours, it seemed like. And then Cyhawk Hoops with everything else that went on. It was a trying, exhausting roller coaster 2 weeks, but I'm glad. I'm happy for everyone who followed along and supported the three of us.
Oh, by the way, they went and beat the number 1 team.
Oh my gosh, I
on
forgot
their
about
court
that.
with the biggest, tied for the biggest win ever. How about Taman Lipsy? How about Taman Lipsy saying, "We knew Cyclone Nation needed something here"? I thought that was an incredible quote.
I knew I was forgetting something. My gosh.
You're forgiven, man. It's been that kind of week. But how about that game? I mean, and that's not even going into Cyhawk, but that was special.
No doubt. To put it on that team, and then you think, okay, Iowa went into Michigan State, got dismantled, the first real test. But Iowa's a good team, man. That's the thing I'll take from that game is Ben McCollum has that team locked in. By all intents and purposes, if you look just talent for talent, up and down the rotations or whatever, I know they're not calling it a rotation for Iowa State. Iowa State should win that game by 15 points or more. But Iowa was a tougher team in the first half. TJ Otzenberger said it. And that's a tribute to McCollum, and it's a tribute to the guys he assembled. I mean, that team plays with an edge, too. And it turns out to be a really nice win, and I think it'll remain a quad 1 win. I think Iowa's for real and going to be in that middle range, whether it's upper middle or lower middle in the Big Ten, that makes it anywhere from a 6 seed to a bubble team.
Let's get into all of it. First, I want to thank Kelderman Manufacturing for bringing us the beat reporters every week here in the Northwest Bank studios. If you've got people who love trucks, mechanics in your life, KeldermanManufacturing.com would be a great spot to go Christmas shopping. I showed you last week everything that they're almost auctioning off, just selling on the website. It's stuff way above my pay grade, stuff that a guy like me cannot understand. But if you are into that type of stuff or you know someone who is, and I can assure you one thing. I know there were some people upset and offended at what Coach Jimmy Rogers had to say last night. Jeff Kelderman was not offended. That got Jeff Kelderman going. I bet Jeff Kelderman went home and built a truck after that. He was so fired up. So give Kelderman your support at KeldermanManufacturing.com. Iowa State 66, Iowa 62 in the Cyhawk game to win their 3rd in a row in the series and 4th out of their last 5. We got a lot of different ways we can go with this one. Ben, I'll start with you. Where do you want to go in this Cyhawk game?
I think you have to start with that, Jake. 4 out of the last 5. And, TJ Otzelberger has been here for 5 years. So Iowa State has seized control of the Cyhawk rivalry. I wrote in one of my takeaways under TJ Otzelberger. And they did it today. They did it on Thursday night by locking down Bennett Sturtz. I mean, held him to just 3 made shots. The 3 shots he made were all... that was the only reaction
Beauties.
you could give. Just step back, NBA, high-level three-point shots. Killian Torrey did an awesome job. Nate Heisey did an awesome job late. Taman Lipsy came up with 4 steals. It was a team effort to lock down Sturtz, and I think that's where it starts and ends to stop the Iowa Hawkeyes.
Yeah, I agree, and I think all of Lipsy's came in the first half, and they needed every one when Iowa was in control there. But Killian Torrey, man, the way he defends, it is elite. And the offensive game is the to get a little French accoutrement to his game. I mean, and it's so much more developed than I think we thought it would be. But I'm going to bring up Joshua Jefferson naturally. I mean, there were times during that game I said next to the guy next to me, Xander, who was with the Daily, does the AP stuff for the games, that a 3 that Jefferson hit in the first half, I think, came shortly after the Jimmy Rogers "Let's blank the Hawks." I think it took it from 30 to 17 to 30 to 20, and it was a 23 to 7 post "Let's blank the Hawks" run the Cyclones went on. Jefferson, 24 points. I mean, whatever it was with the boards, but he's now Iowa State's leading scorer, leading rebounder, and he's just a shade behind Taman Lipsy for leading assist. And I mean, I think our friend Travis Hines asked TJ Otzelberger after the game just about how much they're asking him to do. I mean, he played about 36 minutes in a game that was that grueling, and yes, he had the turnovers, but he is asked to do everything, including facilitate and have the ball in his hands, bringing it up the court. So for his numbers to go up the way they've gone up, he's 46% from three now, when he was low 30s, I believe, last year. So he was a threat last year, but now he's locked in there. I mean, again, we knew an off shooting night was going to come from Iowa State after two incredible shooting games against a team they should destroy, Alcorn State, and a team that they shocked on their home floor, then number one Purdue. And it came, but the toughness played out. And I asked Joshua Jefferson after the game about the emotion. That guy's as stone faced as it comes usually. And he really let it out last night. And he just said he really wanted to savor the last one against Iowa. You know, a guy from Las Vegas gets that locked into the SIAC. Gives a little bit of George Niang vibes. Of course, we had George for 4 years. And I doubt Josh was going to come back and do podcasts after it. A different type of
He's
personality.
not going to be calling Chris Hassel a decade from now.
Probably not, based on his general demeanor. But that it meant so much to him, I think that was a special takeaway from that game as well.
Back to Torrey. Let me share this stat. The last two games, Iowa State's gone against two of the best point guards in America. Bennett Sturtz, Braden Smith, they're on everybody's top 10 at the worst, probably most people's top 5 for point guards in America. They combined for 76 minutes, 21 points total, 12 assists, 9 turnovers, and an 0-2 record, while primarily being guarded by Killian Torrey. That's probably going to be the most impressive and most important stat I can share all year. Until Iowa State sees Jaden Bradley, they're not going to see point guards close to what they saw these last two games. And I don't even think Sturtz or Smith necessarily played bad. In fact, I would say it'd be ridiculous to say they played bad. They certainly played below their standard. And I think a lot of that is because they had to work for every single inch against Torrey. And Otzelberger talked about it after the game, that it's not just when Sturtz has the ball. He gives up the ball, and that's almost more terrifying because you don't know what he's going to do coming off of screens, what he's going to do misdirection. You don't know how he's going to get the ball back and how he's going to create leverage through that. In Torrey, when he was guarding him, didn't let him get leverage really all night at all. All 3 of Sturt's shots came against, 2 of them were against Momcilovic, 1 was against Jefferson. Sturt's an All-American caliber player, had 0 points while being guarded by Torrey. That was unbelievable to watch in person.
Hey, we got to bring up Blake Buchanan. Not to shift too quickly off of off of the point you made, Jake, but TJ Otzelberger said nobody impacted winning more on Thursday night than Blake Buchanan. And I think we saw Blake Buchanan's impact in the 2.5 minute stretch he left the game. Dom Plata was not playing last night. He's day-to-day with an ankle injury is the status update we got on that. And it left Eric Mulder as kind of the only guy, and Mulder might have been a true 5 at the the level below. I think he's still learning to play in that role, in that capacity this season. But when Blake Buchanan came back in, I think the Cyclones got an immediate boost. Of course, he got another offensive rebound with 30 seconds left on the clock to ice the game and steal another possession. I came away impressed with him, man, and we saw how impactful he is in the moments that he left.
Well, it says something about Blake Buchanan that you look at the stat sheet and you say he only had 6 rebounds. Because we talk about the Killian Torrey steal dunk parlay being worth more than 2 points. It feels like every rebound Blake Buchanan gets is worth more than 1. I mean, the one going to the floor, I know Iowa was up in arms thinking that it was off with them. I thought Iowa State had actually gotten a timeout, and I think they did. So I'm not sure what the situation was with that. But, just such a smart player. I was thinking about when I watched him, and it got a mismatch with the guard just because of the situation, and Taman's matched up with the big, and Buchanan just plays the game, backs in the guard, and Taman shakes free from the big for a layup. And he got another one off of a near Taman steal that could have been or turnover that could have been a disaster, rolls right to Buchanan, again, knows for the basketball because he does the things like Torrey, and who's wide open? Nate Heisey for a layup. So, I mean, again, and not only did TJ say as impactful, he even added, I think, maybe even more. So I mean, what can you say about that guy in terms of the big moments? That guy is showing up. Torrey's showing up in every moment, but Buchanan is certainly flashing when the team needs him the most.
They don't win that St. John's game without him either. And to your point, Rob, about heavy rebounding feeling like double, I echo that 100%. In a similar way, playing Iowa almost felt like every shot they make felt like double also. The way they drain the shot clock and play at their own pace. That's what I think was also so, one, impressive about Iowa State's comeback, but also so important in the fashion they did it in. This was not going to be a chip away win, I don't think. Like, Iowa State needed that run coming out of the locker room. Because, like I said, when Iowa is hitting those end of shot clock threes that I swear they had 5 or 6 of them, those feel like triple because they just bled 30 seconds. And when they had a 13-point lead, that it every possession was one closer to the game being over. And that's what was so important about Iowa State coming out and playing their style of basketball to open that half and go on the 16-0 run to open the half, 19-0 run overall. I thought that was really impressive for an Iowa State team that, like Otzelberger said, hadn't been in that situation yet. They've been in one close game all year. Against St. John's, they never really trailed more than, I think they trailed by 7 in the first half of that game. They hadn't been down double digits. They hadn't had to go into the locker room down yet. And that is it was impressive to see the team's resolve because we hadn't learned about it yet. And that'll make them better going into the Big 12 play.
Absolutely. And one thing I was looking at is Ken Palm, because I thought, well, how much will Iowa State's offense fall? Well, it fell, I think, from 6 to 8. Iowa's defense shot up 5. Iowa State's still 2 in Ken Palm. Iowa moved it up to 22, I believe. I mean, and they're still, to the point of Iowa's draining of the shot clock, slow tempo. It's impressive the way they make that work. And they entered the game at 356 out of whatever, 366 or 5 or whatever it is. And they stayed exactly right there. So that tells you they played the tempo they wanted most of the game, except for that run. And it's kind of what allowed them to claw back with their own, Iowa to claw back with its own 8-0 run. And I came away impressed with both teams because Iowa State, again, didn't shoot it the way they wanted. Payman Lipsey talked about it. He said he thinks that basically all of them would say we should have played better and could have played better. But that was tough nut to crack, that Iowa half-court defense. And it's going to be interesting to see what they can do in the Big Ten because they clearly believe. And to come in and nearly knock off Iowa State. Iowa State ended Purdue's 36-game home non-conference winning streak. Iowa State, I think, just extended it to 39. Boy, that was a tough one, as you'll see in that stretch for the Cyclones.
Should we talk about the refs? This has been a hot button topic in the Twitterverse, especially on the Jake Brend Twitterverse. I put out my opinion. Trust me, I control from time to time. I enjoy it. I enjoy spending 1% of my brain power to irk people the wrong way, if you will. What I put out yesterday was my legitimate opinion that I didn't think Iowa State got a favorable whistle to start that second half. I thought there was a lot of times once they built that lead to get it up to 10, Iowa goes on that 8-0 run. There was a couple times they were out of control, got some bailout fouls. That's all I said, and what I noticed was no Iowa State player lost their composure. Otzelberger did not lose his composure once. I was watching it adamantly, and all I said is that I think Otzelberger's ability to stay composed and keep his team composed and let the crowds boo at every single call, right or wrong, over time, I believe that changed the course of the game a little bit. And Iowa State got home cooking down the stretch. If any Iowa fans are listening to this, that's what I'm saying. I think Iowa State won the game in part because they got a couple favorable calls. And I think it was a masterclass by Altsberger. And I actually talked to him off the side after. And I just asked about that. And he said, it's a Final Four crew. Like, we tell our players, don't react. They're people. They're humans. And human nature comes into play. When you've got 15,000 people screaming at you every single time, and the coach, the players are being super respectful to you, when it's a big moment, not intentionally, subconsciously though, like, that's why home court advantage exists. And I guess I didn't really read any Iowa fans' replies to me, but I know kind of what the overall message is to them, and that's my opinion, and I do not back down from it whatsoever.
I think that does say a lot about, it's an impressive feature of TJ Altsberger that he does throughout every game, whether it's home, away, he does remain that consistent presence. And I guess there's more than one way to work a referee. I'll have to ask my dad, who's back to referee in some high school games. Hey, Dad, do you respond better, in those late game situations to the coaches who have been berating you all game long, or the ones who, are nice and respectful? But I guess if we're talking about that play that I saw on social media going around, the ball that might or might not have rolled off of Taman Lipsey's foot, I guess Ben McCollum was asked about that. He didn't have a timeout to go back and look at it. And Ben McCollum said, hey, that's not an issue if you secure the rebound. So I think there is some of that going around, those touch fouls early. But as you said, Final Four crew, I actually didn't come away sitting courtside with the impression that the referees impacted the game all that much.
I didn't either.
I was surprised to see all the social media discourse. I didn't think anything was egregious.
You know what I think happened? I think like any game, there's going to be 5 calls one way, 5 calls the other way that I think are really dicey. And that's kind of what I was saying during that 8-0 run, where it's just like, a couple of those were calls that I didn't necessarily agree with. And I don't really think most Iowa fans thought that throughout the game either. It's just they get to the end and see the box score of what? We only shot 3 free throws and they shot 17. And I think that's kind of where it started. And that can be easily explained. Iowa they don't get to the free throw line. They bleed the clock down every possession. And a lot of their scoring opportunities are almost not desperation, but they're end of shot clock jump shots. And a lot of their layups are wide open, in part because Ben McCollum is a really good coach and can draw up some beautiful plays. Like, there was just not a lot of times yesterday where Iowa was getting into the paint contested. And that's all Iowa State did in the second half. And when you pack the paint, that's what's going to come with it. And I don't think the free throw disparity was anything more than just style of play. And I think it's a ridiculous discourse that it even exists.
Well, that's happened before with Iowa State, where TJ seems to have generally done a good job of getting to the line, but
especially the early ones, though.
Yes,
similar to Iowa.
You'd see other teams go to the free throw line at a high rate because you're defending at that high level and you're not getting as much offensively as So, again, somebody pointed out on social media too that. Iowa's rate, you look at their opponent's rate of shooting free throws, and you reference this. I mean, it's been there all year. And one of them, again, thing that's most impressive about them is how easily they operate late in the shot clock, and operate well. And to their credit, when they got drives, they were pretty much uncontested. They were strong finishes. So, yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of opportunity to put them on the line because that's not the style that they play, and it doesn't suit the players that they have. Given the way Sturts controls things and then freelances, as you mentioned, Jake. Another thing, I wanted to correct myself, by the way. Jefferson scored 3 straight points after the Jimmy Rogers thing, but the 3 didn't come until he made it 33-25, which was big to make it single digits before halftime. But he scored a bunch of those points down the stretch. But I think that's a great point about it's not a knock on Iowa because they're doing what they need to do to be as successful as they can, right, with the tempo aspect. And I think they've done a great job of that. But I think fans on that side should probably not expect them to shoot a ton of free throws because, as you guys have mentioned, that's just not the way that they're built to operate at this juncture.
No, it's because there's a vendetta against them. It's an inside. It's a conspiracy. No, I kid, but I just we went through this with the early TJ days. I remember there was one game where I don't think Iowa State shot a free throw at Oklahoma, or maybe they shot one, and Oklahoma was in the 20s. And you're like, why are they not calling fouls? And then you realize, well, Altenberger's teams kind of are fouling every time down the floor, and Iowa State has one guy that can get to the rim, and it's Isaiah Brockington.
Yeah.
And over time, of course, Altenberger's evolved, and now when you've got a guy like Joshua Jefferson, he's going to go to the line a lot. The way that he plays, Taman Lipsey too, Torrey, downhill players can get to the rim. But enough officiating talk. Is there any other topics you guys want to hit from that game? The atmosphere I thought was really good. I said on our pregame show over on Iowa Everywhere, the show that I do with Andrew Downs Buckets, I said that I don't really want Hilton to have to be at its best, because Hilton is at its best when it's a desperate crowd. Hilton's at its best when the team needs it. And the team needed the crowd yesterday. The team needed Jimmy Rogers as well. And I thought the atmosphere in the second half was incredible.
I agree.
We want to talk Jimmy Rogers now? What do you guys... I mean, we have to get to it. We
might as well.
Yeah. Wow. I hit, the Joe Rogan reaction. That was me. That was me when it happened. Like the ringside of the UFC, because I was so shocked that a coach would say that, and I thought it was an electric moment. And here's the thing, I think that shows a lot of people who Jimmy Rogers is, man. That guy's a straight shooter. He's direct. He says what's on his mind, and I don't think he cares what people think. I think that moment is a great introduction because it shows Iowa State fans a lot about their new football coach.
Well, I think also it was interesting because I was struggling to hear him, so it felt like
same.
Maybe there was a little bit of nerves going on or something. It was just, it wasn't the type of energy, you hear. It was like it seemed like a first-time public speaker at first, sort of, and then the crescendo, and then for lack of a better term, a punchline in a different sense. A punchline in the sense of wow. That just got everyone excited. Taman Lipsey said he heard it, and again, the run 23-7 after that. I mean, I agree, Ben. I mean, it's a great point that this is a no-nonsense guy that's going to, occasionally come off half-cocked, as it were, in terms of just, hey, this is who I am, right? And I think, that was jarring and just like, wow, did that really happen kind of moment. I mean, just in the middle of that game. It'll be interesting to see how everything goes going forward. I think we saw both sides of him when we were introduced to him, whenever that was. Was it Monday? Yeah, it was Monday. And I think we'll continue to see that. A measured guy that clearly knows what he's doing, but also a guy that has some emotion that he'll let out. And, vociferously.
I'll say I feel vindicated. I don't know if I've said this publicly. At this point, it feels like I've been on a podcast for a week straight, so I probably did say it publicly. But I've been telling people that I like how unpolished Rogers is from a media perspective, because we're coming off of Matt Campbell, who, best coach in school history, nothing but good things to say about him. If there is a shortcoming, it would be how polished he was on the podium, and how repetitive and how robotic things would feel over time. And Rogers being, I don't know if it was nerves or more if it's just kind of the way he talks, he doesn't seem like that polished of a public speaker. And I think that led to some good moments during his introductory press conference. And it led to something even greater at the basketball game than I could have expected. So I'm excited to cover that going forward from a media perspective. Maybe a guy who is a little more Otzelberger, where Otzelberger is a straight shooter. He's not afraid to tell us what he thinks about his players, good or bad. Whereas Campbell, I understand both sides of it. Campbell would never go out in public and say anything negative about one of his players, and I get that side of it too. But to me, it seems like Ben said, Rodgers is a bit of a straight shooter.
Well, and also, I mean, Matt was guarded, is the way I'd say it, on the podium. Very much the opposite of that off to the side. When you know, that's when Matt's personality really shined. But it was clear it was his message, and that's how he wanted to deliver the message, and he stuck to that script, almost without fail, So, yeah, to see a little bit more of an unbuttoned up approach, I mean, where it's like, here he's talking about this and this and this, and then, whoa, did he say that? I think that's kind of
RBF.
What we're being primed for.
Well, and there's also the aspect. This is kind of where I sit with this. When it comes to the Dan Lanning stuff, and does Oregon truly need another coach to go put fuel in the fire? This is Division I. This is Power 5 college football. If you're not ready to go regardless of what's on the other side, then what are you doing? And that's what I appreciate so much about wrestling. They don't care about bulletin board material. Yeah. And Jimmy Rogers shouldn't care about bulletin board material either. When they step into Kinnick Stadium next year, the Hawkeyes will want to beat them as bad regardless of he said F the Hawks or if he kissed Kirk Ferentz at his feet. Either way, it's a rivalry game, and that's what I appreciate. Lean into it. Get the fan that. He won over the fans last night more than anything he could have done short of some big additions in the transfer portal or winning some games next year. That what he said at Hilton Coliseum absolutely won over the fan base, and I think it was a great move, even if it might have been unintentional. We don't unintentional. Yeah. We don't know.
And guys, you know me. I'm no F-bomb expert, but I do think we should just be clear with our audience what Jimmy Rogers said. And I think there's a difference between blank the Hawks and let's cheer on Coach Otts and beat the blanking Hawks. Yes. I feel like there's a difference there.
Agree.
And He had his guy, Coach Otts, up first in that message, and I think that's just how a football guy talks. I think that's what a rivalry should be. Maybe you shouldn't go out there at Hilton Coliseum and say blank the Hawks. Maybe that's a step too far.
Yes.
But the way he said it, man, I don't think, if I was up there with a mom with kids, sure. I don't know if that'd be awesome. And I talked to some people afterward who said, okay, I don't know if that was the greatest look. But I think the way he said it, perfectly crafted to get everybody fired up and not make anybody too mad.
Well, it's also has a bit of a Red Sox-Yankees feel, right? I mean, make the Cyclones maybe the Red Sox, and how many times is that F thing with the... That's different. That's an F the, whatever thing. But, it's acknowledging, hey, here's our coach. It was as respectful of an F-bomb. I think there could be that still served the thing. And I wanted to aside on wrestling. I took a video because I noticed Kevin Dresser was courtside there. Yeah. And he looked like he was coaching the team. He first he clapped, and something good had happened, and then he's down, and you see how they're kind of on their haunches when they're on the bench watching and rocking back and forth a little bit. I didn't get the video. The video I got was somewhat illustrative of that, but what I saw him do before was more like that. It was like he was coaching guys in his corner. And that's how intense that guy is. Just a lot of interesting and fun elements from coaches not named TJ Otzelberger at that game last night.
I don't know whose video it was, but the angle of Rogers addressing the crowd, you could see the student section in the back, and while he's talking, obviously there's just everyone watching, and then a few frames later, a guy already has his shirt off. That's what he did to the student section. I'll have to go see if I bookmarked it or whatever. I saw so many tweets on social media. Maybe our great producer Aiden Wyatt can find it. But again, when you talk about winning over the fan base, winning over the students is an important piece. There's a lot of seats in that student section, and I have no doubt that they're going to fill Jack Trice next year. But if this doesn't get students more fired up to go support your program, what he did last night cuts out showing up to the fraternities with pizza. You probably don't have to do that now because these guys are all on Jimmy Rogers' side right now, and certainly can't blame him. I believe Aiden's got it pulled up for us. So, yeah, if you zoom into the top left of the basket, you see a guy who already took his shirt off and is going tarps off for Coach Rogers.
I don't think that guy likes the Hawks very much. Just my take.
Probably not.
And speaking of that, Ben, you tweeted it. My bad. I totally missed that. I just saw.
Ben noticed that compositional piece in the upper corner, right? I mean,
I did not notice that.
Oh.
I know one of I think it was like the Cyclone coach account. They kind of highlighted all the students in the background and just how quickly everybody universally like put their hands up and lost their mind.
Yeah.
It was interesting to see the student reaction. I was even looking at some of the student managers on the basketball team. They're locked into the huddle, but they're kind of peeking over to see what the football coach had to say. Yeah. And one of those guys was like, whoa, so I think everybody kind of had that universal reaction.
Let's thank our friends at Farm Story Meats. Farm Story Meats would be a great Christmas present for anyone. I mean, who wouldn't love a meat box showing up under the Christmas tree to provide some good home cooking during the holidays? FarmStoryMeats.com. They have so many different bundles that you can go look at. They've got the Christmas bundle. They've just got their basic one, and it's homegrown. It is all pasture raised, and you know exactly where it's coming as it's supported by local farmers. And the best way to support local farmers is to buy their products and help keep Farm Story Meats doing well. We appreciate their support of us here at Cyclone Fanatic. What a game it was Wednesday night at Hilton Coliseum also, as Iowa State beats Iowa in the Cyhawk women's game for just the second time in the last decade, and it was once again the Audie Crooks show. It was kind of the big three show as Audie Crooks, Addie Brown, and Jada Williams all record double-doubles, and this is Iowa State's first real big win of the year, and it was impressive to see at Hilton Coliseum how they were able to pull away in the third quarter and then hold on at the end of the game.
Before we talk about Crooks and Brown, we always know what we're going to get with them. I was looking specifically at Jada Williams. This was her first Cyhawk. I wanted to see how she handled it, and it was a largely inefficient night for her from the floor. She went 5 of 13. I think she just left a lot of shots out there that she normally makes and that she would want to have back. But the way she passed the ball, the way she entered the ball into the post, I thought was exceptional all night. So many of those buckets from Crooks were created by Williams. She finishes with 12 assists. That was something that isn't the main story or isn't the main talking point of this game, but I feel like we'd have to mention it on the show.
I totally agree. And what I've marveled at with her is her precision with those lob passes. Those are not easy passes to execute perfectly, especially when you don't know exactly how teams are going to defend Audie Crooks. And Iowa showed about every look that you could see, straight up, double team, bring in the extra guard underneath on the back end. I mean, she just, and that's uncanny to me, her ability. And speaking of somebody, granted from a lot closer to here in Kansas City, but I, of course, went to Arizona, that seems to be built for a Cyhawk game that you wouldn't necessarily think, like a guy from Las Vegas, Joshua Jefferson. Jada Williams is built for this, whether it be her, showmanship, I mean, everything, and she delivered. But again, I mean, that's a really good Iowa team that did a lot of winning things that Iowa State canceled out in a lot of ways. And one person I wanted to highlight, because I went and grabbed her later, is Kenzie Hare, the blocked shot, as they drew up a play to get McCabe a shot to potentially tie the game. And what she told me was, I mean, the only thing I thought was, gosh, don't foul and make it as tough as possible. And she was able to block that shot. And that was a huge, I mean, she hit a big three in the first half. It helped Iowa State. She didn't do a lot on the stat sheet, but I really wanted to highlight that because it's going to be the Audie and Addie, holy cow, what did they do all year? But if they're going to be truly special, it's going to be the Kenzie Hares making a defensive play that's going to allow this team to ascend from, you know, Big 12 title contender to something greater than that.
I think those lob passes you mentioned, Rob, I think that's going to be my focus on Friday's Daily Clone if you haven't checked that out yet. I asked about that at the end of the press conference on Wednesday. I might have been the first person to ever ask Addie Brown about throwing jump balls, throwing lob passes, but I noticed it too, because unlike Valparaiso, Jan Jensen threw a lot of different looks at Audie Crooks. And it's funny because when you think of basketball, what's the hardest thing to do? It's protecting your dribble. It is finishing around the basket. It's playing defense. The hardest part of the game for Audie Crooks is getting the ball to her. Like, the way teams guard her, once she has the ball, once she's like Megatron, it's like an NFL wide receiver. Just catch the ball, get your feet down, and then it's over. Like that's the easy part. And I think it's really a craft that probably isn't talked about enough for how creative Addie Brown and Jada Williams specifically have to get to throw her the ball. And what Addie said is they've got a 6'6" guy on the scout team guarding Audie every day in practice. And that's the best way to practice it. And I think it's something that has certainly evolved as Addie has gone from a freshman to a sophomore to a junior. And of course, Jada Williams is one of the best passers that's come through this program. So I think it's fun to watch. It's really nerdy to like it, but I do love it. And I think it's fun to watch.
Audie Crooks, Addie Brown, Ariana Jackson, they all get their first win against Iowa. And that's what I asked Coach Finley about after the game, is how much of a benchmark, important milestone is it for this junior class that kind of defines this era of Cyclone women's basketball. And I love how Bill Finley didn't shy away from what Cyhawk means. Man, he's real up there when he says, for everybody in life, there's going to be a day at work tomorrow that's bigger than your previous day. Whether it's finals week at school, there's going to be tests that you have to pass. And for Iowa State to get that win against Iowa, it means a little bit more. I saw a video afterward of Audie Crooks hugging Addie Brown, and they just said, man, like, finally. You could tell that this was something that they kind of needed on their resume as somebody who is so, if they're going to be remembered as one of the greatest Iowa college basketball teams in this state, then they had to get this win, and they finally did.
And Jackson, didn't score a point, but got rebounds. She always defends at a high level. Coach Finley calls her probably their best on-ball defender. She had a tough duty that night, but I think she's still shooting about 50% from three. So what she's done for this team is through the roof. And I also want to shout out Sarah Dyson with Sports Information. When I went out to get Kenzie Harris, she went up and grabbed her for me. So I want to be remiss. I could have waded through everybody to get to her, but she went and did that. So I appreciate that.
Sorry, I just laughed when you brought up Ariana Jackson, because I was thinking of some of the shots that Chit Chat Wright was hitting. Like that.
That was unconscious.
That woman impressed me on Wednesday night. That was like watching it. Rob, you'll like this comparison. It echoed Isaiah Thomas, Boston Celtics Isaiah Thomas, to me a little bit. She is not big out there, uses her leverage to get to her spots, and we all know Ariana Jackson is not an easy player to go against. When you're the fifth option on the floor, and as sturdy and as quick as she is really hard to go against, especially when her primary job is to lock you down. And Chit Chat, more than anything, beat good defense with great offense. And I came away super impressed with her. I know she'd been dealing with injuries this year. The Hawkeyes seem to have a pretty special point guard of their own.
Agreed. And when you started to say Isaiah, I was starting to think, oh no, you're not talking about the Pistons Isaiah Thomas. I was not going to appreciate that.
No,
no, I get what you're saying. She had a step back. She had a 25, 26 foot three when they needed it, in moments. She was just superb. So I fully agree with what she's going to give them. I think both these teams' ceilings, I mean, there's a reason they're ranked right next to each other. I think they're similarly high, and it'll be fun to watch.
And I don't think I'd move. Both of them. I don't think I'd move either of them.
No.
I think Monday comes, unless someone ahead of Iowa State lost that I'm not aware of. Yeah. Unless something like that happened, those teams should probably stay right next to each other, because that was, when you factor in the Hilton advantage of probably 3, 4, 5 points in a game like that, those teams were neck and neck. And who knows, maybe we could see that game in a Sweet 16 down the road.
That was the best atmosphere probably until Thursday night. The Cyhawk women's game was the best atmosphere that we've seen in Hilton this season.
Yes.
So shout out to, the students. Everybody showed up. A few interesting fans too. Rocco showed up.
Yeah.
Benjamin Bramer showed up. Caleb Bacon showed up. I'm not speculating. I don't want our audience to read into that, but I thought it was interesting that those guys would show up in support. I think Rocco gave the post-game speech.
I believe it was pregame.
Pregame speech.
So he gets a little responsibility for Iowa State's first win over Iowa since 2021. At least a little bit. I mean, 99.5% of it goes to the team, but they can give 0.5 of it to Rocco for a good pregame pump up.
Rocco helped on Wednesday, and Jimmy Rogers helped on Thursday.
Well, let's get into football. It's probably time. Actually, go to CycloneFanaticShop.com. Do all your Christmas shopping there for any of your Cyclone gear. We've got just some beautiful script gear. We've got our Hilton Magic crew neck that is beautiful. A lot of players gear. We're working on building a couple players NIL t-shirts coming up. So head to CycloneFanaticShop.com. Check all that out to get your stuff in time for Christmas. I don't even know where to begin with football. I don't think there's any point at this point in breaking down how everything went down last week and how Matt Campbell left, how Rodgers was hired. It's been covered ad nauseum across all of our platforms, and it's been a week. It's been a week since all that went down. I guess at this point, it's probably just down to how do we think the Rodgers era is going to go. Maybe not long term, but this next month when the transfer portal will really heat up soon.
I would think there's going to be a lot. When you look at what Matt Campbell's been able to do with Penn State, bring in Taylor Mauser, bring in Ryan Clanton, bring in Deion Broomfield, 8-year deal, above and beyond NIL. I mean, they are all in on the Matt Campbell era. So, I mean, I think whoever they want, they can bring to Penn State. And it's all about fits too. Penn State still has a lot of really talented guys on its roster. So it's all that. So I think roster attrition is a given. It's just a matter of how much and who. But I think Rodgers, again, proved when, he took the job at Washington State, the guys just kept jumping in the portal, and he had to replace over 70 guys, and they got to a bowl game and took Ole Miss to the wire in Oxford, and two other really good teams that were ranked in the college football playoff, also really narrow losses on the road. So I think he's proven he can assemble a team really quick, and that's a mark of a guy that is a good connector too. Like Coach Campbell and his staff were as good in that area as I've seen. It remains to be seen exactly what Rodgers' staff will look like and how they're able to do. But I mean, track record says he can do it pretty quickly, and that'll be the main thing to watch. Just how much movement is there? Who do they want of those that are willing to come back and all that kind of stuff too. And it's going to be, portal opens on January 2nd, but obviously people can declare for it as they have been anytime. So going to be a lot of stuff going on through Christmas and the rest of the holiday season, and keeping an eye on people's Instagrams and everything else.
Rodgers brings in his own GM, so you have that connectivity, remaining intact. And as you alluded to, he replaced, 70-some players last year. It was a completely different roster at Washington State, which puts that 6-6 record a little bit more into perspective. Just a couple of the names I don't think you mentioned when you were running them down, Rob. Derek Hoosier, Iowa State's old, GM essentially.
Big loss.
Big loss. Yeah. But, I feel like he was always going to be a Matt Campbell guy. And you kind of got that same sense with Taylor Mauser, who, if you remember, followed Campbell over from Toledo to Iowa State, and then now it's been officially reported to Penn State. I think both of those are notable names, and you have most of, if not just about all of, kind of those Matt Campbell guys that really felt like attached to him at the hip going to Penn State, which should not come as a big surprise. That's how these things go.
Clanton feels like the biggest to me just because of what he's been able to do with this offensive line. But again, I mean, Broomfield, of course, had existing Iowa State ties. He played for Paul Rhodes and all that. Yeah, not surprised. I mean, Taylor Mauser, of course, Jamie Pollard told us, would have been very interested in the head coaching job and all that type of stuff. But again, he's mentioned how much Coach Campbell means to him, and given also ran, almost in his words, maybe defensive lineman at the D3 level, the chance that he got and to get up to OC. I mean, so yeah, not surprised by those. And Hutch, of course, is very much a Matt Campbell guy, as you said, and so that's not surprising, but it is significant, as you noted, for sure.
I think the offensive coordinator addition of Tyler Roll is a really good move. A guy that has been in the program, a guy that really, along with Ryan Clanton and Taylor Mauser, brought Iowa State's running game to a new level. Honestly, it brought it to a level because really since Breece Hall, there hadn't really been a Cyclone running game until that 2024 season when Roll brought in a lot of different power running packages, a lot of, if you will, they're going to eat some eggs, bacon, toast, and black coffee for breakfast. As
some nails in there too.
As I tweeted out on when that hire was reported, and I think it's just a good hire as far as player retention goes. Like Carson Hansen is definitely good enough to play at Penn State if he so chooses, if Matt Campbell so chooses to potentially bring him along. He's also proven that he's certainly good enough to be at Iowa State. And if he was 50-50, again, this is no insider information. We have not talked to Hansen. But if he was 50-50 on giving it one more go with Coach Campbell, or if he wanted to stay in Ames, maybe bringing back his old running backs coach as the OC, a guy you know is going to run the ball a lot and run the ball in a way that is favorable to Hansen's abilities, maybe that's what pushes him over the edge to stay. We don't know, but player retention, I think especially offensively, is going to be what's vital. Based on Rogers' background defensively, and the two names, Jesse Bobbitt and Ross Watson, that are reportedly coming in to be on that defensive staff as well, I have very little concern that the defense is going to be at a Big 12 level next year. If anything, I'm more bullish that it could be closer to the top of the Big 12 than the middle. The offense, though, that's a big question mark when you're bringing in an all-new offensive staff and you're trying to retain these players. Bringing in that familiar face to potentially keep 3 or 4 guys on that side of the ball that maybe wouldn't have come back otherwise, I think is a really smart move by Rogers to bring in one of his old rivals.
I totally agree. I think there's going to be maybe a different kind of feel in terms of who comes back on the offense versus the defense because of everything we've talked about with Rogers' defensive background. And it really matters who might come back and who's a fit on this defense. Gone is the 3-man front. That's been the dominant topic in so many of our shows, and I'm sure over the course of Cyclone Fanatic. And Rogers mentioned in his opening press conference, again, straight shooter. There's going to be change there because Iowa State has too many defensive backs right now, and they need to bring in more depth at defensive line. Rogers said he wants to do it hockey style, get the depth so you're able to do 4 in, 4 out. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how much of, the sales pitch, if you will, and the scheme is enticing for defensive players to come back versus offensive players who maybe feel like, to keep their same scheme, it's easier to go east.
I would say that, when they had Will McDonald and Eni Waziriki, they were able to do hockey style 3 for 3, not 4 for 4. And obviously that depth is worn down, as you alluded to, Ben. And that was interesting how Frank Rogers was about that, having too many defensive backs for scheme and all that. And I want to say, though, since we brought up the three-man front, I think it would be remiss. It's a long one. We got a long one going, but there was a lot to pack in. An appreciation of John Haycock, architect of the best defense Iowa State's ever had, statistically, for the times, and a guy that from the very beginning was first class with all of us, to the very end was first class with all of us, would say, appreciate you all after every single time he spoke to us. I mean, that guy, his stamp is on the best years of Cyclone football, and not as much as Matt Campbell's, but as close to as much as Matt Campbell's as anyone else. And, gonna miss him.
In that same vein, before we get out of here, guys, Taylor Mauser, man, a media Hall of Famer, Taylor Mauser. So without, being a homer or anything, I think it's very fair to say that you appreciate somebody who is just, so happy to be there and always getting to know your name. And man, Taylor Mauser is a Hall of Famer in terms of the Stark Performance Media Center.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll miss Mauser's every other Tuesday press conference during the season. It was something I truly looked forward to every other way. I guess both. Haycock and Mauser. I look forward to talking to them both. Definitely both have their different styles about doing it. And those are, I think, above anything else, now that you're kind of on the other side of that coaching change, a lot of it's the people. Like Mauser, Haycock, awesome guys. Matt Campbell, truly just a special individual that came through Ames and did unprecedented things and truly lived out everything that he said to the media, everything that he said to the team. And I think that was showed in him purchasing a full-page ad in the Des Moines Register. The candid 2.5 minutes that he gave in his introductory press conference. This was not an easy decision. This was not an easy decision for Campbell to leave Iowa State, even if it was an easy decision for him to accept the Penn State job. Mm-hmm. And I don't think anyone doubts that at this point. And it would not shock me whatsoever if 65-year-old Matt Campbell is Dan McCarney coming back once a season and pumping up. Who knows? Maybe it's Coach Rogers' squad at that point or Taylor Mauser's squad at that point. I have no doubt that Matt Campbell is truly a Cyclone for life and someone that will embrace the program for the rest of his life.
Jamie Pollard said they should build a statue. So
absolutely, they should. And I'm a big proponent of giving someone their flowers when they can still smell them. So maybe not tomorrow, but yeah, I think in the next decade you probably should start construction on that.
One note on McCarney, you brought him up, and I'll do another shameless plug. I talked to McCarney kind of the weekend on Sunday after it all went down, and I asked him about what Matt Campbell's legacy is. And he said, the wins, of course, are obvious, but the way he did it is the thing that stuck out from one coach to another. I thought that was relevant, and I think if you ask anybody around Ames, they'd probably feel the same way, which is why it wasn't a bitter breakup. This was not a Lane Kiffin situation. This was, I think, as amicable a coaching breakup as there can be, and a lot of respect. And you definitely expect to see Matt Campbell around town at some point, maybe in the far future, maybe not so much in the near future, but certainly he'll be around.
Yeah. Awesome, guys. Good show. We covered a lot and probably could have gone 3 hours if we really needed to. I'm gonna take a break from this podcast, Mike. I think maybe enjoy family Christmas for a day, and we'll get back. It's been a lot for everybody. It's been a lot for the fans. It's been a lot for administration. It's been a lot for the journalists. But this is why we do it. It's weeks like this through the positive stories, through the negative stories. It's what the beat reporters are for. And you two have done a great job this week, and it's been fun being in the trenches, if you will, with you guys, even though we weren't truly in the trenches. There was points where it felt like it.
Yeah, Jake, we were literally in the snow trenches together.
Yes,
we were. You pushed my car out of the snow trenches. We were there. We were there. Thank you.
And then ran into a player at an Iowa State football player at Casey's and did some, or Hy-Vee Fast and Fresh, actually, and did some investigative journalism. Well, this has been the Beat Reporters here in the Northwest Bank Studios, presented by Kelderman Manufacturing. We'll be back next week for probably a slower news week. Thanks for joining us.